I know you were a holdout until recently. You were considered a likely no. You voted against it the first time around. Have you now read this entire 570-page bill and you like it?
I have. I've read every word of it and summaries, and look, there's honestly, Wolf, there are things in it I wouldn't have in there, but that's the way a legislative process works. I did everything I could, Wolf, to try to create this, to make this create smaller deficits, or at least the possibility of that. Over a $43 trillion base over 10 years, there is a possibility there would be in the range of $500 billion less in revenue than otherwise would have been created. On the other hand, with some of the other economic development issues that are underway, there's a possibility we could go over. I would have liked that to be really tidy and known that there was no way for any kind of deficit to be created. But look, I lost that, and at the end of the day, you have to decide, do you think this is better for our country or worse for our country, worse off having this? I think it's better, and I'm glad to be supporting it.
What did you get? I know you were pushing hard for what was called a backstop or a trigger option in case the deficit was exploding, as some fear it will. There would be a cut in some of those tax benefits, especially for, let's say, for corporations and for the very wealthy. In this legislation, did you get anything along those lines, any of those triggers that would stop it?
No. Look, honestly, I did not. Most of the people, look, I actually don't have a word in this bill, Wolf. My whole effort was around the macro issue of deficits. You know, I lost that battle on the Senate floor and would have been glad to let it stay on the Senate floor for another couple of days to try to resolve that. But obviously I lost that debate, and said at the time I would relook at it, and I did so. I've made calls all around the country, all around our state, talking to economic development people, chambers, people involved in foreign direct investment in our state. And, you know, I do think this is something that's going to be good for America. Again, I wish we could have contained it, as I mentioned, but look, I lost that battle, and you got to move on and then decide, you know, on face value.
But I just want to be precise, Mr. Chairman, just want to be precise. For all practical purposes, nothing really changed of substance between your no vote a few weeks ago and the yes vote you're going to have tonight.
Not really. I mean, there was some reconciliation issues that were certainly nothing that was of substance from my standpoint. I went through, you know, I've gone through the bill in detail. I've also gone through those changes. Do they make it substantially better or worse? No, they don't. They're minor. So nothing changed other than the fact that I said, look, I'll relook at it when it comes back around and try to make a decision then. You got to remember, Wolf, I was fresh off not being able to make any headway on the deficit issue. When I voted no that night, I still felt there was an opportunity to possibly have a bipartisan bill. I was still in discussions with some Democrats that were interested, but at this point, you know, when it comes time to this vote, I know that is not going to happen. And do I think our country's better off having this tax reform in place versus not? I do.
Because one thing did change between the no vote and the yes vote tonight, and you know your critics are pouncing on this provision that includes real estate partnerships as what are called pass-through entities. That was not included the first round. It is included now, and they're arguing, and there's a hashtag Corker kickback, and I want to give you a chance to respond, that has resulted, this is what your critics are suggesting, that has resulted in your decision to go ahead and vote in favor of it, because personally you're likely to make a lot of money as a result of it.
Yeah, so first of all, I knew nothing about the provision. I've had no involvement. It actually came out of the House. It was part of their House bill. When they did the reconciliation, it was merged in and altered slightly to make it conform. Senator Hatch has put out a statement saying I had no input in that whatsoever. This is something that, again, has been traveling with the House bill since, as I understand it, the beginning of November. It's not just real estate, by the way. It's manufacturers and others. And just for what it's worth, I've had someone check into it. It has a very nominal impact on anything that would be involving me. So just be assured that is all total nothing, had no impact. And when I decided to vote for the bill, I'd gone through a two-page summary that noted the changes between the Senate bill and the House bill. It was a summary, and that wasn't even mentioned. I didn't even know it was a part of the changes that took place. So absolute false. And again, this affects not just real estate, but manufacturers and many others.
So how nominal will it be based on the estimate that you got from your experts? Because some of your critics are saying it could be very significant, potentially millions of dollars.
Absolutely not. I mean, you know, it is very nominal.
Do you know how much you will save as a result of this provision, which the House inserted into this final joint House-Senate Conference Committee language?
Well, let me just put it this way, Wolf. My salary each year goes to charity, and it would take many, many, many years for this little nominal thing to even account for 1 year's worth of salary. This has no impact on me that matters. It is absolutely nominal, based on a preliminary look, and we're not even sure that it has that nominal impact. So for somebody to say this has something that has a big impact on me is a total stretch, and you know, it just does not.
Here's the other point that your critics are lashing out at you, and I'm going to play the clip. This is at the beginning of October when you spoke about this legislation and its impact on the deficit. Listen to this.
I'm willing to accept a reasonable score on dynamic growth, a reasonable score on dynamic growth. Joint tax does those. There's some other groups that do it. But if it looks like to me, Chuck, we're adding 1 penny to the deficit, I am not going to be for it, okay? I'm sorry. It is the greatest threat to our nation, the greatest threat to our nation.
All right, as you know, since then, the Joint Committee on Taxation has estimated that the legislation which you're about to vote for would add about $1 trillion to the deficit, even after accounting for projected additional economic growth. So why do you support this? If this is the gravest threat, the national debt to the country right now, why support something that at a minimum will wind up adding $1 trillion to the debt?
Okay, first of all, you know, certainly I care about deficit issues. I've focused on that the 11 years that I've been here. And the actual projection from current policy is $500 billion over a $43 trillion 10-year base. So it's about 1.2% off of that projection.
Well, what happens, Senator, if they continue the tax cuts for the middle class, the reductions beyond, let's say, 2025, when they're supposed to sunset or expire? If it's passed again, then that deficit is going to continue to explode.
Yeah, and you know, if Congress continues to spend money like it's getting ready to do towards the end of the week, and next January it will do the same. So yes, I cannot control, you know, what future Congresses do. But let me get back to the point. So there is a projection based on modeling that this is going to be about $500 billion off relative to a $43 trillion projected revenue base over the next 10 years. And, you know, I care about deficits. I also care about pro-growth reform. And look, critics are welcome to challenge me on this, but at the end of the day, again, as talking to people around the country on both sides of the aisle that I respect, our economic development folks in our state, our chambers, the folks who recruit on behalf of our state, and what was going to happen to foreign direct investment, the keeping of companies from creating inversions and leaving our country and leaving the employees behind. When I took all of that into account, I felt like that this was a better policy being in place.
Let me, with all due respect, Senator, Mr. Chairman, I want to just read to you again what you said. You said, if it looks to me, and you were talking to Chuck Todd on Meet the Press, if it looks to me, Chuck, like they were adding 1 penny to the deficit, I'm not going to be for it. Okay, I'm sorry, it is the greatest threat to our nation, the greatest threat to our nation. It's going to add a lot more than 1 penny, as you know.
Yeah, well, it could. It could also, there are projections that show that that's not the case, but I would have rather it been tidied up, and there have been absolutely no chance that that was the case. But Wolf, I think at the end of the day, certainly that's the way I felt during that interview. As I've looked at this policy and I've looked at the benefits to us relative to growth, this is a decision I'm making, and you know, I've explained it over and over. I said when I voted against it when it came through the Senate, I was going to look at it again, which I've done. And as I've mentioned, I feel like in spite of my concerns that I expressed very clearly in that interview, I think that our nation is better off with this policy being in place, especially
So why did you
the
vote no,
changes.
Mr. Chairman? Why did you vote no the last time it came up, and you're voting yes this time? I hate to be, you know, repetitious,
Yeah.
but you know, the economy is doing just great right now. The stock market's exploding, as you know, it's gone up a lot, record highs, unemployment record lows. The economic growth is really impressive. So why go ahead and vote for this now at a time of economic strength?
Yeah. For all the reasons I just mentioned, Wolf, again, I was the only no vote that Friday night on the floor. I still felt there was a possibility to with that no vote and maybe some other things that were happening, to potentially have some Democrats come on board, but also to create a better situation as it related to the bill. And look, so I voted no. And I said at the time very clearly that I'll look at it when it comes back around. I'm doing that now. You can criticize me, but I don't really know, Wolf, what it is you're getting at. What are you trying to say here?
No, I'm not criticizing you. I just want you to give you an opportunity, Mr. Chairman, to explain, because as you know,
you've explained it 3 times.
You're getting a lot of criticism out there because you flipped the vote from a no to a yes. Let's move on to some other.
Let's talk about when you say flip the vote. You know, a bill comes through the Senate, it comes through the House. People have issues that they try to raise. This is now the final vote, and Wolf, I've always had an operating principle that when it comes down to the actual deal, this is the final vote, that I always act as if that I'm the deciding vote. And, you know, we're now at the end. The process has ended. I've been unsuccessful in solving some of the deficit issues that I'd hoped to solve. But when I make these final votes, I always make them as if I am the deciding vote. And I've tried to explain to you several times here. Look, I spent a tremendous amount of time on the phone last week with people on both sides of the aisle, trying to weigh the growth aspects of this versus the deficit issues that I've been concerned about. I announced it very clearly on Friday as to what I'm going to do. I know that I'm being maligned over totally malicious stuff that's totally been disproven. I know people are having a good time with this, but it's just malicious. I'm making this decision because I believe that it is best for the country, period. And sometimes things don't exactly line up. Your interest, I have foreign policy initiatives that I work on, and sometimes, you know, there's a tug and a pull between 2 competing principles that we have to deal with. In this particular case, it's solely because I believe our country's better off with this being in place.
No,
and,
the reason I'm asking these
questions,
Mr. Chairman, is because I want to give you a chance to respond to your critics, because you're getting some criticism, and this is a good opportunity for you to make your case. Let's get to a couple of the other senators who've been, you know, on the fence. Susan Collins, the Republican senator from Maine, she's a critical vote on this bill. She's going to vote in favor of it. Partly, she says, because it will restore Obamacare cost-sharing subsidies down the road. But now, as you probably know, there are a whole bunch of Republicans in the House that are pushing back on that. They say they're not going to go along with that. Here's the question: is she getting played?
I think that I just got a memo from the leader, and which we do each day, and it appears to me that the Alexander Murray legislation that she's talking about is going to be a part of wrapping up this year. So I do not think she's getting played, and so I think she's been successful achieving many of the things that she wished to achieve. Again, what she was looking for was different than what I was looking for relative to deficits, but I do not think she's getting played. No, I do not.
What about Senator Jeff Flake, who said he got a promise that the Dreamers, the DACA legislation, would be passed? As you know, there's a whole bunch of opposition for that as well. He's going to vote in favor of the legislation because in part he believes the president promised he would support that. Is he being played?
You know, I don't think so. I know Jeff, like myself, care deeply about getting this issue resolved. I don't know what his private conversations have been, but look, you know, around here you have to operate in good faith when people tell you things like this, and my sense is he's been successful in achieving what he wants to achieve, or he would not be voting for this legislation.